When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, this is Mark Ledlow, the host of the Fearless Mindset Podcast, here in studio at OC Talk Radio in Irvine, California. And yeah, I flew here from Dallas to Vegas, and now we're here in studio with Tim Wenzel, the man himself.
Live, in person.
In-person studio.
I've never done a podcast in person or in studio.
Congratulations. No more Zoom, no more Riverside. All in person.
Well, I think we're probably still going to have to rely on person.
But Tim has accomplished a great title recognition
An
in the
award,
industry.
yeah.
You got an award.
Yeah.
It's the top 40 life safety award.
The Life Safety Alliance.
Oh, close.
Top 40 security thought leaders.
Folks, that is a big deal. I don't know how he did it, but he did, and congratulations to him.
I appreciate that.
And you moved on from corporate tech in the Bay Area and moved on over to Kroll, and now
Been there for a year now.
You know, you're crushing it over there, I hear, and now he's traveling all over the globe too, folks. He's like getting on like the speaking tour circuit thing with his book with with Lee Ogden and the Kindness Games, and you got some stuff up your sleeve right now. You're cooking some stuff up in the kitchen.
Life is good. Life is definitely good. And, last month in July when I announced that I got this award, you and I talked. Actually, it was right before I announced.
Oh, yeah, you gave me the inside edition.
Right, and yeah, because I posted it on LinkedIn.
Right.
And I said, a lot of people are asking me, okay, what is this influencer thing? What is a thought leader? How does this work? How did you get there? And, so I got this award this year, but this isn't the first one that's not new. So this year in July, Life Safety Alliance, they named me a top 40 thought leader. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Round of applause.
Yep. February of this year. Oh, yeah. February of this year, Security Journal Americas named me as one of their 20 influencers in security for the year. And
that's a big publication.
Yeah, and I did a little cameo in that influencers. Yeah,
making your rounds.
And then in 2022, IFSEC International named me global security thought leader influencer, and that was the first time that I was ever recognized as a thought leader influencer, which, to be honest, made me feel a little strange.
Strange from the days of being in the Army as a medic to the days of traveling the circuit with Lee at the Kindness Games on the panel in front of thousands of people.
Big change, and
but Tony Robbins of the security industry.
He doesn't look as good as me, though. So
that's true.
That's too bad.
Doesn't have your Dr. Dre rap impersonating, and you'll have to catch that on the reel, by the way, on YouTube.
But yeah, no, it made me when it happened in 2022, it made me feel weird. Because I don't know. I felt like maybe I was a little bit too big for my britches.
And you have a little humble
like,
pie.
Ooh, you're like a thought leader and influencer. And to be honest, I was like, what is that? I mean, because it's thrown around. It's strange.
Yeah.
And, I didn't really feel like I was anything special. And I still don't, actually.
Very humble.
Well, appreciate that.
You don't take yourself that seriously.
The only two people that I know that do not share your sentiment are my wife and my mom. Every time we go to my mom's house for dinner, she prays that the Lord will keep me humble.
Ooh.
And then, my wife says, amen, amen, amen. And then as soon as they stop the prayer, I'm like, do you guys know I'm the humblest person I know, though? Like, everybody tells me how humble I am. They're like, see, that's the thing. You can't say that.
But humility is not the norm trait you find in this industry. Mainly alpha personalities that are not humble. So you're an oxymoron on the stereotype.
Yeah, and thank you. I really do appreciate that. There's a lot of stories to tell about this journey I've been on, which is the reason that we decided to do this, to talk through this journey, because I meet people now, and people are so excited to meet me. They're like,
It's
"Oh my
weird,
gosh,
isn't it?
Tim Wenzel!"
Is
Like,
it bizarre?
can I? Yeah, it is.
It's like I have the same thing when I go to conferences. I have the table for those very people are lining up. Oh, Mark's there. Mark's over there.
It's crazy.
10 people line up. Oh, I just want to shake your hand. I love your podcast. I'm like, okay. And I have to go get another water. I'm losing my voice.
Well, and I mean, you've got the best name in podcasts, like the Fearless Mindset. That's
Thank you.
crazy. But
Weird, crazy.
for me, like I'm always thinking, like, if you knew just how normal and like potentially mediocre I am, like you wouldn't be that excited to meet me. And so,
What is your why?
gosh, I guess I should have reread that book before I came here, huh?
What is your why? For people that haven't read the book,
Well,
why do you do what you do for the kindness games and for you're not doing it for Kroll, you're not doing it for the kindness game, you're just impacting people.
yeah, my why has been consistent over the years. I saw things that I thought were wrong. I saw things that could be done better. And everywhere I was, we were stuck in this is the way it's done. This is the way we've always done it. This is how we don't get in trouble. This is. And it didn't take me long just to utterly reject that. And just say, no, that's not a good reason to do anything. But when you have those environments to where this is the way it's always been done, just keep doing it this way, they're often joyless environments. They're often ruled by fear. They're often ruled by subtle anxieties or not so subtle anxieties. And one of the first things we talked about on your podcast last year was my idea around the insecurity.
Yeah, so well said.
Yeah, and so that is the reason that I've started speaking out with a lot of coaching and pushing from other people. Is I just want to create joyful environments for people to be in.
That's the mission statement for JSX. That semi-private charter jet that I use all the time. It's not private, folks. There's other people that share. It's like you're sharing a seat. And it's like maybe couple $100 more than a normal United Airline flight. Class. It's like coach. So not private. I'm not flying around private. But
big baller, you?
No, not yet. But not yet. We're the business is doing well. I'm very blessed. But that was his mission for the entire company, JSX, is that the guest or the customers that fly with us experience a joyful experience. I'm like,
it's huge.
I'm like, huh. That's why it triggered that.
Awesome.
Have joy in your experience.
If they give me United miles, I will try JSX. But I'm addicted to the miles, man.
Hey, yeah, that's a perk. Hey, how many miles do you have now in your thing?
I don't know. I'm over 250,000 lifetime for sure.
250,000?
Yeah.
Been moving around.
I mean, I would have lots of miles if my wife didn't drain them out of the account every time we took a vacation.
Oh, she does that.
Yeah, so everybody's like, you must have a ton of points. I'm like, they don't last.
Vacation goes bye-bye.
Yeah.
So you've been hustling. You've been on the speaking tour with Lee. You guys been hitting every other month you're somewhere.
You want to hear something crazy about this year? So speaking this year started in April. Las Vegas, Boston, San Diego.
Whoa.
Okay. Switzerland.
You guys like Switzerland?
Switzerland's a good spot. They keep inviting us back. Yeah. And then after Switzerland, Panama, just like
you just left there
a week ago.
You're in Panama.
Yeah.
He was in Panama a week ago.
Yeah. And now I'm here in Anaheim, right?
I flew here for this podcast. I rushed my trip back.
Thanks, man.
And 2 layovers and with JSX, and then I got here just in time. I feel like I'm like on the world tour with you. I'm on the road almost 3 weeks. Haven't seen a bed.
Yeah, things are really kicking off for me and for Lee and both the kindness games, the whole talking about leading with kindness, talking about risk management is really going well as well, and just so much going on. And I felt like I just wanted to tell the story of like how all this came about so that everybody could know that if you want to do this,
You can do it.
you can do it. Because, 10 years ago, I hadn't spoken at a conference yet.
Years ago. Never been on a stage, never been invited to speak about.
My first one
donuts
was
and
9
coffee.
years ago.
Wow. What was the changing moment?
Well, the changing moment was Christian West.
Interesting. I did not know that.
But let's get there. Let's go back to when I had decided I was not going to be a paramedic anymore full time. I was going to get into executive protection. That's because I came home from doing the invasion of Iraq with the Army, and life was just boring. And so I set out to figure out how to get into executive protection and how to start this journey. But you have to realize that I grew up in a cornfield, like a small town in a cornfield.
You're a farm boy.
Yeah. And
Wow, farmer.
I didn't know how to talk to people because everybody I spoke to, I grew up with. And I was in the National Guard. So even in the military, most of the people I was in the Guard with, I lived around.
Yeah.
And the people I didn't live around, I met over several years. So the thought of stepping out of that cornfield, moving into an industry that I knew no one in, that I really knew nothing about, I literally bought a couple books on how to have conversations. Like small talk, like how to have everyday like conversation, like, and not talk about the weather, which is still tough. I still fall back on the weather, which is lame. It's like the stupidest topic that you can, bring up when you're meeting somebody new. But I had no idea how to walk up to somebody I did not know.
Yeah.
And have a conversation that would leave an impression that they might want to talk to me again. That was a huge hurdle. Yeah.
And then here you are, bumps and bruises along the way to figure out
that
people's
was like
skills.
2006, 2007 time frame. All right, so a little bit longer than that. I did the contracting overseas in Iraq, which really helped me meet people that were similar to me, right?
Yeah.
We'd all done the military thing. Most people had done, things that were way better than me. But they kind of taught me that you develop a reputation in this industry. And that reputation is going to inform how good it can get for you. The types of jobs you can get, the types of details you can be on, all that stuff. And so I had already tried to be liked, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go here, meet everybody, and everybody's going to like me. Well, I realized, I'm sure you realized, that no matter how likable you are, not everybody's going to like you. It's an impossibility.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think because you're dealing with an alpha personality driven industry, and like I was talking to a colleague in the industry. I'm not going to name names because he'll probably get pissed off if I mention his name. Because most of your haters are Marines. I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised. So guys, I hope I motivate you guys.
But one of the greatest philosophers of our time, Taylor Swift, says haters are going to hate. Shake it off.
Classic drop. Classic drop. Couldn't wait for that one. That's true. I mean, the girl's a genius.
Yeah.
Give her props.
So so what I settled on, most people in the executive protection, when they get started, they're going to be hustling for a detail. Somebody flying in for a trip, right?
2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever.
Can I work for 2 weeks a month is what I was thinking. If I can work for 2 weeks a month, that is successful. I should be able to make a living that way. And then you're hustling. But how do I make that happen? And so I started to think that I didn't want to be liked by everyone. I just wanted people to say I'm easy to work with. So I can be easy to work with even though you don't like me. Right?
Yeah, true.
I can do my job well enough. I can be accountable enough. I can be somebody that you can put confidence in. And you know what? Tim is easy to work with.
Or how about the one where I'd rather be respected than liked? Is it the same thing or different?
Yeah, but, I just found out that there's people that aren't going to respect you either. Right? I mean, there's just so many personalities. And what it really comes down to is a lot of the security industry, but specifically the executive protection industry, it's a lot of people see it as a zero sum game. Like there's not enough going around, right? So it's kind of like a famine. And if I'm going to have work all the time, that means somebody else can't have work all the time.
Sure.
And that's how a lot of people see it, right? And so they play this zero sum game to say, hey, if I'm going to win, that means I have to win by making somebody else lose.
Good point.
And so people, they're just not always great to be around because they want to work all the time. But if you are easy to work with, and rarely do we have to work alone, then maybe these high performers will bring me along because I'm at least easy to work with.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Different perspective. Something I learned something new today. Thanks, Tim.
So that was my goal in getting going in the industry. And the whole idea of thought leadership never really crossed my mind. I was just trying to stay gainfully employed.
Pay the bills.
And not wreck my family.
Survival.
Early on, I started seeing a massive leadership deficit.
Oh yeah, it's huge now.
In executive protection.
Major deficit.
Not that there weren't people who were leaders, not that there weren't people who wanted to be leaders, step into leadership roles, but they just didn't know how to do it well outside of the military or police environment. And there was just toxic culture after toxic culture. You would be around, people that were great outside of work, but at work they sucked. It was just terrible.
Right.
And you never wanted to work with them again. And you would have a client. This client's awesome. I could work with them for the rest of my career. If I could just work with this person forever, except the other people on the detail, they were just terrible. And so, I started thinking about what does leadership feel like for me? And so for a while I had this philosophy called true leadership, which was how can I never be different in my personal life versus my work life? How can I not be different with you right here in the team room or in front of the client? How can I always be the same? Always be what I like to be, always be joyful, always be professional, just always be, because a lot of people, myself included, we have been told, well, you have to be the gray man, right? You just have to blend away so no one notices you, which, yeah, there are times in executive protection and security where you shouldn't be noticed for sure, right? And then, the quiet professional, don't speak up, which is actually probably the biggest piece of crap advice in the security industry, because that gets used as a club to beat people into submission when people just want to have a thought.
You're human. You have the right to have a thought.
Be a quiet professional. This is the way it's done.
Sure. I've heard that most of my career.
And it's terrible.
You're not supposed to be heard from or spoken,
Yeah.
Don't speak until it's spoken to. But if you're dealing with different cultures, like working for royal families in the Middle East, yeah, I get that. But from a corporate side, family offices, okay.
Well, I think you have to understand the situation you're in.
Situational,
right?
Words.
We all have to be situationally appropriate.
Right, that's true.
But even away from the family, away from the client, you're in the team room and you're like, hey, can we try this? No. I have an idea. No, you don't. And that's how it was very early for me. I didn't like it. And again, I saw that fearful enforcement of the status quo, which was mediocre, to be honest.
Weren't impressed with leadership at all.
Yeah, and I actually wasn't impressed with a lot of the detail work that I did. Full disclosure, I am not the greatest executive protection person ever. Probably myself, mediocre, right?
Right.
There are some people that are really, really good at it. Yeah, give me some of those Altoids.
I have one. We're sharing mints, man. You're this close, your
double
breath.
Stack them, man.
Oh, double stack and triple stack.
I'm in there.
Called podcast survival.
That's right.
I don't want to kill him with my breath, so there we go.
But yeah, I would make it onto a detail.
Yeah.
I knew who the client was. They told me about who the people involved were, and I was just like, wow. This is going to be amazing. I'm going to learn a massive amount from all of these people. My expectations of how this is going to go were so high. And then I would meet people who were just like me
Trust.
that I really didn't have a whole lot to learn from. I would learn some things here and there,
Yeah.
but I realized that people just like me are everywhere. But the problem is that the people just like me were only doing the things that the people that had been there for 20 or 30 years before them were telling them to do
Okay.
from 30 years ago.
Makes sense.
I was like, why? This doesn't make sense that we're doing things, which I am the first year of the millennials. So a lot of people hate on the millennials. Maybe that's what makes you a thought leader. I don't know. But so then I was going through that, and I started working for AS Solution, and I got lucky enough to sit next to Brian Jansen for 2 years straight.
Brilliant, man.
At the office.
Yeah.
One of the best, and spend a lot of time with Christian West. And Brian and Christian are two of my foremost mentors. I mean, they've sown so much into me, and they are just really high quality, good people. Always looking to elevate other people around them.
I mean, I don't know too many men out there that sold the company, 2-3 times.
Yeah.
He has a knack for knowing business, Shout out to Christian for pulling that off. And one thing I've watched too is he always has surrounded himself with people that are smarter than him in different things.
Well, and to his credit, he himself is not intimidated by talented people.
Strength. Yeah.
And he invests in the people around him to find and uncover and develop those talents. And I mean, honestly, he and Brian, they just pour into people and make people so much better than they could ever be on their own, which is what ended up happening with me. So I was working there for a couple of years, and Christian was like, hey, you have a lot of really interesting thoughts about the industry, different thoughts. The way you build your programs, the way you operate your teams, the way you do team dynamics and team development, just the way your teams operate is different.
Culture.
It is culture. And I wanted to build a joyful environment, a culture of trust.
Hard to find.
True trust.
Hard to find on those teams.
Here is your scope. You're right and left, right?
I imagine there's a lot of infighting going on in there because of the personality, alpha personalities going on, protection of turf.
I mean, you have to understand the tendencies that people are going to have, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that I learned really quickly is the types of personalities that will get along. And then how to screen out the personalities that are going to become toxic.
You see like red flags now that you've been in the industry.
Do.
You can see not going to be a good fit. You already know.
Yeah, and the other thing that people don't really understand in this industry, and this comes more from like IO psychology, is if you have a manager or a leader of a team and they build a team around them that gels really well,
yeah,
and then that leader leaves, you have to start recruiting for a leader with a similar personality, a similar ethos, because they've crafted that team to interact, right? We don't just interact in a vacuum. You like my personality, I like your personality. It's what brings us together. I like the way you delegate or whatever the things are. So you have to actually start to map out your teams into traits.
Right. Yeah.
And traits that attract and make good team cohesion. And if you take somebody who's like a type A, militaristic type of guy, they put all of these people together like it's a platoon, and you bring in someone like me, those people are not going to love to work with me.
Sure.
Because what I do is so much different. The dynamics change. And so you have to be more thoughtful in the types of people and personalities you put together if you're going to have a joyful environment.
Yeah, that makes sense now. How you put that together. Sure, the background by now about that story. I never knew that story.
So Christian, I was putting on trainings, I was putting together programs, and he said, you should really you should start speaking.
Oh,
I was like,
interesting.
yeah, I don't think so.
Not my thing.
Well, I was scarred. So, I mean, he's like, why? Why don't you want to speak? He goes, I can get you into a conference like next month. Like, you can speak. It's easy. Are you afraid? I said, I'm not afraid of speaking, but the people in our industry suck. And what if I say the wrong thing? What if I put a thought out there that is unpopular? What if I put a thought out there that turns out to not work, to not be true, right? People poke holes in it. I said, I don't want to be thrown under the bus. I don't want to be savaged in front of an audience, in the Q&A. I don't want to be ripped apart on social media. I just finished surviving all of these team rooms and starting to build my leadership methodology and build my teams and exist in my joyful environments with my people. I was just starting to get this success in, 2014, 2015. Why would I want to put myself out there into such a hostile environment like the executive protection and greater security industry?
Wow. There you are, based off, given a road, kind of a fork in the road opportunity with Christian. He goes, I see you as a speaker, and you're like, what are you high? Like me. Chris Decker said, hey, you should try podcasting. Everything is shut down right now with COVID. I'm like, okay, how are you going to get the word out that you exist? I'm like, what's a podcast? And we started down the street in Irvine at his studio. And then I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, now people say, oh, are you a professional podcaster? I'm like, no, I've only did this for a few years. I'm just doing this for marketing. But you don't know until you jump all in.
Well, it's true. So Christian, the way he helped me out is he's like, well, first let's write down a couple topics you might talk about and let's sort it out. Right. And then you'll tell me, like, what are you afraid of with this messaging? Like, what could go wrong? What could people react to? What? And he would really lead me through like some of these thought leadership exercises, to be honest, and kind of vet the things that I wanted to say. How could people react to them? And then he tells me, he's like, look, here's the thing. 90% of what people are afraid of never happen.
90%.
And he's like, and even in an industry as, messed up as the one we're in, he said, people don't want to look like dicks in front of everybody else. So like, you don't really see people standing up in a Q&A and like pinning someone against the wall. And he's like, and then the other thing, Tim, he's like, my team has your back. Wow. If you put something out on social media and you're not crazy and, somebody starts coming after you, he's like, let us know. We'll brainstorm it and we'll get it dealt with. Like, we'll find out the best way to respond. We'll find out the best way to do all these things. And we have your back. We're in this fight with you.
Wow.
Which, again, is kind of a rare thing.
Very rare in our culture.
In the security industry.
It's not normal.
Somebody that's going to stand beside you.
Yeah. Usually they're throwing you under the bus.
Yeah.
To make themselves look good because the ego's in the way.
And then, so that's where it started. 2015, my first speaking engagement in public was in Orlando, Florida at Epic 2015. Okay. So the precursor to IPSB.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So it was the ESI EPI conference.
Okay.
And I spoke about the like security technology and EP. Okay. Around the residences and stuff like that, and a lot of the work that I was doing at Facebook when they were a client. And it was a thought leadership talk. It wasn't a how-to, it was a how to think about it. And this is what you're responsible for, even if you don't think you're responsible for it.
Right.
So that actually, it went fairly well. I didn't get laughed off the stage, but man, I was nervous. So freaking nervous, dude.
Were you sweating, losing your voice?
No, I didn't lose my voice. I was sweating profusely, I'm sure. But I mean, I'm looking in the audience and it's all the people that lead the entire EP industry, right? All the people that you're like, oh my gosh.
A lot of pressure.
It was.
And neurologically, you're sweating because you just don't know what's going to hit you.
Yeah, and so I said stupid things. I said probably cringy things. Like people are like, "Shut up!" Like stop that, right? But the coolest thing that I did was the Microsoft Surface had just come out, and I was using that at work. And so what I did was during the presentation, I actually switched to projection mode instead of my slides, and I started drawing up on the projector. Like, here's a house. Oh, we'll make a big house. Open it up. I was like, oh, we got here. This is Brian Jansen. Draw a big nose, like a massive nose. I'm Brian Jansen, who is front row. He's literally my boss at the time. But people were just dying laughing, right? And but it was instructive as well, and that was like the entertaining factor that made that work. And then after that, I didn't expect I was going to get any more opportunities to speak.
You're done.
Well, I didn't think it was very good. It was okay.
Yeah.
It worked. It was on par with most other presentations within the security industry. That means it sucks, because most people in the security industry, they're not good at public speaking. They're nervous, and maybe even if they're not nervous, they're so reserved out of that fear and anxiety that we talked about.
Yeah, absolutely.
That they don't take it all the way. They're always holding something back, always leaving the audience like wondering, like, what should be here that's not here, right?
Right.
So yeah, that was my first one. And then Christian said, like, hey, have you ever written an article? Like, what? No, I'm not going to write an article.
Why would I do that?
You're a crazy person. I don't even like to write.
Crazy person.
And so he started giving me opportunities to publish in the AS Solution newsletter. And what do you want to write about? Do you want to put something on LinkedIn that has nothing to do with us? We have a guy that does the writing, and he does the editing. I'll send him your piece, let him proofread it for you, like get it ready.
Okay.
And so it was this type of mentorship and coaching that really got me into the public, sphere, public speaking.
How many years ago? 5, 6 years ago?
That was like 2015.
Okay. Here you are.
2024. So 9 years ago was the first time I stepped on a stage.
Robbins on stage.
Right.
So here's just an abstract question. Yeah, you're a global security thought leader now. How do you find a new vision, a new purpose of road? Maybe there's something I didn't know was in me that I need to explore that I could offer to the world. Being leadership training on the stages or psychology.
So that was the next thing I started doing, actually. Is that we started putting on workshops. So this was in 2015, I went to ISC West, and I took the CSPM certification workshop. So it's basically their PSP.
Okay.
Certified Security Project Manager. And I went with a couple buddies from the Bay Area Tech, and we got there and we were doing this workshop, and we would they would ask questions like, hey, how would you think through this? We would raise our hands and be like, here's how you do that. And they'd be like, no, it's not how you do it. We're like, what do you mean it's not how you do it? We do this all the time.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, no, it's not how it's done in security.
Okay.
And we're back to that again, right? And so day one, day two, we actually kind of got into a tiff with the instructor right at the end of the day. and it was kind of like,
you guys go to blows like UFC style?
He asked a question, and we were like, all right, here's how you do this. And we drew it out. And he's like, yeah, no. And we were like, let me ask you a question. How big are the projects that you work on? And he's like, oh, big projects are like $1 million. And the three of us laughed and be like, yeah, no, our smallest project is $5 million. So I don't understand what it is you're doing. You're telling us what we're doing is wrong, but our projects are 5 times bigger than yours, right?
Oh.
And we're like, so I don't think you can say we're wrong. If you want to have a conversation about it And this guy steps up and he's like, you don't know how the security industry works. You out in Silicon Valley, rah, 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 rah. And like he just like starts going off. And we're like, oh my gosh.
Okay.
And and that was like at time, like end of day 2, and they're going to start bringing the testing computers in to take the test. And the door opens, and the director of education for SIA walks in, and she's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And he's like, "It's going great. We were just done here." And we were just like, whew. So me and my buddies, we go out and we're like, all right, well, you know what? Check this off the list. This is the way it's always done.
Yeah.
So we have no place here, right? Now, the really cool thing that happened is that lady from SIA came and found us and was like, hey, I heard that you guys
Heated over there.
Yeah. And we were like, we're sorry. We're
Take
so sorry, you know.
Take the gloves off, man.
And, you know, we're just like feeling bad. She was a nice lady. And she was like, can you just tell me what happened? So we explained it to her. And she's like, okay. She's like, well, you're not wrong.
That's good to know.
And we're going to change something here. We're going to figure this out. Like, here's my card. Stay in contact. By the time ISC West was done that year, she was like, we want you to start teaching project management workshops next year at ISC West. And you're going to teach two-hour workshops that week.
Did you see that coming?
No, we thought we were going to be banned from ISC West and maybe not even allowed to have our certification.
Wow.
And we're like, oh, cool. And we're like, so do we have to do your curriculum? She's like, no. You should teach it the way you think it should be done.
A lot of trust.
Crazy.
How you handled it.
So we went back and we said, how should you think about project management? And so we started this thing called the problem-solving mindset. And we came back and we taught it. And then later on that day, we were teaching it again. And so we taught it. We had a full class, like 50 people in a small room, right? Okay. And then like we came back and like those people came back and we're like, hey, why are you guys here again? They're like, is this part 2? We're like, no, it's just another one. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, that class was full and some people from the first one stayed because they were like, no, we want to really understand. We have more questions now that we've thought about it. And so we had 2 showings that were completely full. We ran that workshop for 4 years straight.
Incredible.
Twice in ISC West. They had us out to New York to do ISC East one time. And as the years went by, it was 75 people in a room. Then they knocked down the walls and they made it a big room. And it was like 150 people in the room come to learn about the problem-solving aspects of project management.
That's crazy. That's a crazy story.
Crazy, right?
And here you were, introvert years ago, never dreamed of any of this.
No.
And you might have a career as Tony Robbins on the stage doing something else.
And then, you know what? Different people at ISC West are like, you're a great speaker. Do you speak about this? Do you speak about this? And so then it was, I would do the workshops early in the week, and then I would have a speaking engagement, you know, for myself. And that's really how everything just started to gin up from like 2016, basically to COVID, like 2019.
Up after that.
Yep. And then I started speaking at GSX and, you know, all these other things.
All right, folks, we'll catch you on the next episode here in a minute. We're going to take a media break and let our sponsors talk about us.